Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Diane Dennis. Today we're going to talk about the topic that is the most taboo in relationships and marriages and families. It's money. So why is money such a taboo topic? Well, people fight about it. People get divorced over it. So today I have with me Linette Dobbins. She's the President and Chief Compliance Officer for McGee Wealth Management, an award-winning local financial advisory firm. Now, she's not alone in this firm. She works with, besides a big group of people, 2 other women that are family members. So we can't say women don't get along. They have proven otherwise. They've built a very successful award-winning firm. We're going to find out some insights about how to talk to each other about money, how to get along, and we're going to dig really deep. We're going to discover what those underlying beliefs that we grew up hearing from our parents have unconsciously turned our ability to have all the things that we might want to have in our life, not so much. Becomes more difficult. So we're going to put the unconscious beliefs, bring them out, develop new conscious beliefs that will enable us to have the kind of a life that we want of abundance. So I want you to stay tuned and we will be right back. Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Diane Dennis. With me today is Linette Dobbins. She's the President and CCO of McGee Wealth Management, a nationally recognized award-winning financial planning firm here in the Portland area, financial advisory firm. And the reason I brought Linette on, and thank you for joining me today.
Yes, thank you.
Was because I wanted to talk about something that evidently, according to studies, is taboo in relationships and in families, and that's the topic of money. Why, first of all, is it so emotionally charged, the topic? I mean, it's the cause of a lot of fights in families and relationships. It's one of the major causes of divorce. What is it about money that has so much passion and attachment to it?
It's really interesting that people carry a lot of weight with money and carry emotion with it. And so when we grow up, we have different things that affect our lives around money. I was talking to a client the other day who's now in her 70s, and she's pretty well off, but she's very, very frugal. And she shared a little bit of her story with us that when she was about 6 years old, an aunt came to live with them from Iowa to Oregon. They knew her very little, and she was broke, and so she didn't have any place to go. So they took her in, and she said that really impacted her life. And they owned some timber property, but the timber property had a big fire. And so they weren't sure if the sheriff was going to come knock on their door and throw them out of their house.
So there's a lot of fear.
So there's a lot of fear and anxiety, more so for women, I think, that around the topic of money is more built around security. And versus, most males, when we grow up, they're more active with money. It's more used as a tool or other things.
And I think men as boys, are more conditioned to, this is what you're going to do. You're going to go make a living. And a lot of us in the boomer generation, it wasn't necessarily that attractive, or we weren't trained for that until we find ourselves needing to, and then maybe not having some skills developed around it, or maybe good attitudes.
Yes, exactly. And I think when we get into trouble or distrust in a relationship, we start hoarding money, or we open up accounts in our own name and we're not sharing those things. And there might be power struggles around money in the relationship, where there might be one person who feels that if they go do their hobby, or they buy clothes for themselves or something, that they're actually taking food out of their children's mouths if they do that. So there's some tools around that a good advisor can help with to, give permission to spend and have that built into the overall budget to kind of ease some of those arguments around that.
I like one of your taglines for McGee Wealth Management, making life a richer experience. I think a lot of people are afraid to go to financial advisors thinking they're just going to tell me not to spend money. They're going to tell me to give them all my money, and
they're going to put me on a budget.
Right. Oh, the B word. That is very scary. Yes. Right. So, I'm not sure that people talk about money a lot before they get married, but obviously, if they have different attitudes and beliefs and spending styles, that for good reason would be a problem for them to want to discuss, have those discussions.
Absolutely. And a lot of people come and they do pre-marriage financial planning. And if you do prenuptial, in a prenuptial agreement, you're required to put your financial statement, your starting financial statement on there to know exactly what you have. But around that, I've heard, people do creative things. Like one couple wrote out a marriage contract on a roll of toilet paper. They figured out
how they could flush it.
Yeah, yes. I don't know what it was, but writing out, well, how are we going to solve conflict? So how are we going to, parent? How are we going to manage our money? Do we have separate accounts? And one joint account where we pay money from? Do we throw it all into one pot and just write checks? Is one person taking more responsibility in the relationship than the other with the finances? Who makes the decisions? Typically in traditional marriages, and I'm talking about my parents or my grandparents' generations, the men made the investment decisions and the women wrote out the daily bills. And so more and more women are more active in making those investment decisions and taking more power with that. And I see a lot of younger couples actually working better, talking about financial decisions together versus my generation.
Well, that's good to know.
So yes, it's very interesting. But having those tools and communicating and saying, okay, how are we going to resolve conflict around money? How do we want to manage that? And I think I was sharing that, one good way to get a pulse on what somebody might do with money is ask them, what would you do if you won the lottery? What does that look like to you? What do you want to do in retirement? Asking those questions will give you some indication of what their value systems are.
And what you're getting into.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, will you talk about the importance of sharing your values with your children? We're talking about multi-generational financial planning. So when is a good time and what are the strategies for teaching values to kids? Because if they're 2 and 3, are they going to remember? And if they're teenagers, they're living in the moment and they don't want to listen. So how do you go about doing that or advise families to do that?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that you can do just from the time that a child is really young, is that, if they get money as a gift or they can earn money, and you give them, let's say you give them $3. $1 you put in a piggy bank for what we call put and take piggy bank, that they can put it in and they can spend it however they want. And so for immediate gratification. And one piggy bank is kind of a put and keep account that they can keep adding to it, and they're not allowed to touch it, so they can start to see that build up. And so that's saving for later. And maybe another account that says, maybe you have something that you really want to buy, but it's going to take a little time. So teaching them how to save up for that toy. I think we're so ready to just go satisfy what our children want, what they see all the time. And in my family, I've got 4 adult children. They all have children, and I see them interact in different ways in how they treat their children. As far as that goes, I have one that the kids get a toy every time they go to the store, and I just think that's not a good thing to start to train your children.
And there's another piece to that too, is that if parents don't, and I want to impress the importance of what you're saying, that parents need to talk to their kids starting out from the beginning, because if you don't, then your kids are going to be developing beliefs about money, even if you don't talk to them.
Right.
They're going to be, rather than hearing what you have to say and sharing, they're going to be watching what you do. And what do we do around money a lot of the times? We're in a rush, we're frustrated, there's not enough money for that. All the phrases that we hear that help embed that belief system.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
What do you think? I'm
made of money.
Made of money, right? Exactly. So these are commonly used phrases. And then you see parents being stressed out about paying the bills. And so a kid, if you don't sit down with them, is going to think money is this big, bad, scary thing that I have to have. They're going to have a hate-love relationship with it. And it totally makes sense that people would be conflicted about it.
Yep, and avoidance and all those things that go around. So they avoid, or they overspend, or sometimes they hoard. And so how do you have a healthy relationship with money? And that's, having conversations, I think, about what it does to earn it, to save it, to spend it wisely, but don't be too restrictive. So you can have a little fun, but also we need to prepare for, the rainy day that happens.
So you work a lot. Your firm, McGee Wealth Management, has been around for a while. And so you have had generations of families that you've worked with, several generational
Absolutely.
families.
3 and 4.
3 and 4. And so do you bring them all in together? Are there a lot of conflicts that you have to work out? What are some of the pitfalls or conflicts that people need to start thinking about and, talk to somebody? I think a financial advisor can oftentimes be a psychiatrist, a mediator, and a friend, right?
Yeah, so we have had, working with married couples, they say, well, you've saved our marriage, because we really had, healthy way to conversations and a healthy way to objectively look at money and work through some of those communication issues that they have and put them back on the same side of the table. Families with children, giving them tools, and adult children coming out of college, how to be good stewards of their finances, think about retirement planning, how not to get trapped in credit card debt, working with them through college so they don't come out with a bunch of college debt, or if they do, that they're in an employment that they can afford to pay the college debt, because for some it's like a mortgage for a long time.
That's one of the struggles too. And how do you talk to kids today when they say, well, my starter job is minimum wage. I can't buy a house. I can't even get rent now because rents are so high. I can see how these kinds of conversations can be really difficult, because for a lot of middle to middle class families, which is a big major group, it doesn't pencil out. There isn't enough to go around.
Right. We can't afford to look at college as a life experience anymore. You have to look at it as an investment and a return on that investment. And so getting an education that's going to pay something back, I think is critical, and not just going through the motions, and being somewhat serious about it. Of course, you want to have fun in college, but you also need to know that it's a cost, and it's a cost if somebody else is paying your way, or if you're racking up student debt, or the parents are racking up debt, that it needs to be meaningful.
Wow. So, okay, you talk about financial literacy. Does anyone know what that is? I don't even know what that is. What is financial literacy?
Well, financial literacy for people, it's just a knowledge of money. So my mom, who's my business partner and my mentor, has written several books. And in her books that she wrote for the J.K. Lasser Institute, Simon & Schuster, she wrote about financial knowledge is, money is power, but the knowledge of money is also power. So when you understand how the financial system works, you understand how money works, and you understand how to use it and how to build upon it. It's kind of like, I look at it like a snowball. It takes a lot to get that snowball rolling, but once it starts rolling downhill and gathering, and that's why it gets bigger.
So you have to be consistent.
You have to be consistent
and have a plan, and have some knowledge around it.
Have some knowledge around it, and have some faith. The markets, if you're investing in your 401k, the markets are not going straight up. In fact, if you look at it, it's the up and down of the market where the money is made. And you make more money when you're putting money into a 401k every single month, that same amount, when the market's going like this, than if it went straight up. So the value of that, because he who has the most shares at retirement wins. It's like basketball. He who has the most points at the end of the game wins. So when the market goes down, you get to buy more shares and actually make more money on those shares when it comes back up. So embrace volatility when you're putting money away. In retirement, the opposite's true. So you want to have consistent returns when you're taking money out.
Okay. So I can see why people need a financial advisor, because everything that we just discussed isn't taught in school. I didn't take a class called financial literacy. So if you don't have parents that have a deep knowledge and understanding of it, we can get into trouble. But so we're out of time, but I want to thank you so much and tell the audience that this is Linette Dobbins, President and CCO of McGee Wealth Management. an award-winning, nationally recognized financial advisory firm. So if you want to get a hold of them, you can go to McGee
WM.com. So
Okay.
McGeewm.com.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I know you're heading out of town, and thank you. I know you're extremely busy too, so thanks for taking the time today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining me today on Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Diane Dennis. Today we had a great conversation with Linette Dobbins. She's the president and CCO of McGee Wealth Management, right here, a local financial advisory firm and award-winning. She gave us some great insights on how to talk to your family about money, but also the importance of talking to your family and the consequences of not having these conversations. She also gave us insights on how to find a good financial planner. So go out there and make it a good day. I also want to thank our sponsors.